The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Born to be alive, yes we are. You're listening to Rosie Pekar on Until Now, W4CY Radio, and that heavy breathing you just heard is our guest to be. Justin Herald, heralding from Australia as well. So you'll get 2 Aussie accents for the price of one on tuning in today. And Justin is the founder of Attitude Incorporated that he started with his very own last $50 that he turned into 30 million. So, I mean, if you want to get some know-how, now's the time to tune in and ask your questions. Just go to w4cy.com and click on the right-hand side. So welcome to the program, Justin.
Thank you so much.
So you didn't realise your heavy breathing would
No, I was
precede
just
you.
breathing. That's all I was doing was breathe. I'll stop breathing for the next 50 minutes and see how we go.
No, you're good. We've got our first question asking, how did he turn money like that? Well, that's what the purpose of the program is today, because it's not just the importance of, even though that's a headline grabber, obviously, of itself, how to use your last $50 and make 30 million. It's all the steps incorporated in doing that are of the greatest value and far greater value for a successful life. Absolutely.
And I think the dollar figure at the end, for me, and it's easy for me to say that, but it's a little bit irrelevant. Success doesn't equal, or net worth and self-worth aren't the same thing. So it's just panned out that way.
Well, I guess to those, especially on below the poverty line, a little bit irrelevant would not be to them when you're dealing with survival issues first and foremost, which unfortunately in today's world and environment, a lot of people, including those that appear to be successful, are still doing. So it has a relevance because the highest level of suicide in men is businessmen that have lost their finances. So the relevance of money as a measuring stick or a yardstick for self-worth is really worthwhile addressing.
Yeah, look, I think for me, I wasn't unhappy with I actually didn't have the $50. I had to borrow that. I only had $1.25. So I wasn't unhappy, though, at that point. It's for me, I fell into the business thing. It was just set up just to the only reason I started my business originally was to upset a lady in my dad's church who told me I had an attitude problem. So I just thought putting it on the back of a T-shirt to go to church the following Sunday to upset her was a great idea. From that, it then progressed into people wanting to wear the clothing, and from that, it then became a fairly large business. But I think what a lot of people fail to do when they are in that desperation to get themselves out of where they currently are mode is they look at a big figure or whatever, and that's going to make them happy. And I guess for me, it wasn't ever that. It was never, if I make a lot of money, I'm going to be happy. I was already happy. So, yeah.
Well, I guess that's probably for me, my most important state that I aspire to is what I call ease. And that ease is in all things. And that's how I deem my own personal success, is if I have mental ease, physical ease, emotional ease, relationship ease in all those areas. It's like flying, and it feels fabulous.
Yeah, as long as my kids still like me, I'm pretty happy. That's about my measure. You can make a lot of money or you can not make a lot of money, and you'll still find there's some other area that either you're not happy or other people aren't happy with you. And until you, like you said before, until you get to your own certain level within yourself, then I don't think you can ever sort of get to that level of happiness. And there's, I guess for me, it's an internal drive thing. I just love being driven. It's something that I didn't know I actually had until I started a business. It wasn't something that I set out to do. It wasn't something as a kid when I was at school I was thinking of that. And the only thing I passed in school was lunchtime. So it wasn't a thing that I actually sat and really pondered upon. And I think for me, my biggest thing when I speak, especially in front of audiences, the one thing I want them to walk away with is what could I actually do now if I got off my rear end? That's about it, because we don't really know how good we are at things we've never tried. A lot of people don't try because they think they're not going to be good at it.
Exactly. Extraordinary is just that little bit more that we weren't aware in our ordinary lives that we possessed. So for those in, other areas of the world, because your story is quite well known within Australia, but outside market here today, just tell us how your story began at the age of 25, because you are the son of a preacher to start with.
Yeah, look, I growing up, I always had, and it was never my parents, but growing up, I always had people inside my dad's churches try and tell me how to live my life, which I always struggled with that because most of them sucked at living their own lives. So I really didn't enjoy that thing. And I just, as I said before, a lady told me I had an attitude problem one day, and I thought, well, I'll just put it on the back of my shirt to upset her. I borrowed the $50. I got my I got 4 of them made up, which was not easy for $50. Sold 3 of those.
At that time, Justin, I'm just going to interrupt. Did you have, the bald head and the tattoos and the semi sort of Vin Diesel look, so our listeners have a bit of a visual?
Look, the bald head. I did it before it was trendy. I shaved my head to look like I had an attitude, but I'm not sure how I looked. I never really took much notice. No tattoos, I have to say, they're all a new thing, but I'm going through midlife crisis before I get to midlife, I think. But it was one of those things that I just sort of, it was just an idea without thinking. And I think for me, especially for business owners or anyone wanting to go into a business, I think at the moment across the planet, there's this unrealistic expectation a lot of people have of what could actually happen. I never had that. I just wanted to upset the lady, and the following Sunday I'd come up with another idea. And on that first Sunday that I had my mates wear my shirts, people come up and said they'd like to buy one, and I'm always in business about organic growth and doing things small and slowly at the start. And so with those 3 shirts I sold could make 6, and 6 was 12 and 24 and 48, and in the end hundreds of thousands of articles of clothing were sold throughout the world.
But now that's telling it very short and sweet. There are a lot of steps to that process of, the connections that you made, the life lessons that you learnt along the way. So, because there are those, unfortunately, a younger generation, we call them the entitled lot. And I think, us as parents, we want to make sure that our kids have a good, healthy self-esteem and self-value. And in some people, in a sense, I know, having spent a lot of time in many different countries, there are certain areas where parents that have done the hard stuff themselves, in a sense, don't want their children to have to encounter the same hard stuff. Yet that hard stuff, a bit like, the butterfly out of the cocoon, it ain't going to get out of the cocoon by someone else ripping it open. It won't develop its own wings. It won't develop its own strength.
Yeah, look, we didn't grow up on the rich side of the street, so we had nothing. My parents had nothing. They were the old school ministers of churches that put everything into everyone else. And so, like, from a financial perspective, I always joked that I had to wear hand-me-down clothes from my older sibling, which was my sister. But we really we didn't have anything. And I think for me, and you are correct, for me, the essence of my success felt a lot better and a lot more worthwhile because I was never handed anything. I had to go and create my own luck and my own success in that. And I had to figure out, the first thing I had to really figure out, especially when starting a business, is whereabouts did I suck in different aspects of that. One of them, obviously, was the financial aspect. For at age 25, having $1.25 in the bank, obviously I didn't know how to manage money. So I had to learn a whole heap of new skills. But for me, I when you put it into a business aspect, I actually realised I was good at this business thing. Nothing ever made sense. School never made sense to me. Nothing ever made sense, but business made sense. So, and for me, it's just a 1 + 1 = 2 thing. So it's one of those things, I guess, that had I not ventured into it, I would never have known. And I just embraced the change and the uncomfortable feeling that I had, which a lot of people fret about, but I embraced that because I actually figured that if I didn't know a lot of stuff, there's going to be a lot of things I need to learn, and I was embracing that.
Okay, so one of our listeners has asked the question, so how do we get the motion to try? So I guess you would deal with different business individuals and maybe even in their personal lives that are now at the stage of have tried many things and it's not worked out or are lacking that motivation. What sort of a square roots or down-to-earth process that you walk or lead them through?
Yeah, look, the one thing I've never done, and some people disagree with this, but, it works for me, but I've never actually had a business goal at all.
Yes.
My businesses are the things that I do to get the stuff that I want or the lifestyle that I want or whatever, which means I just need to do that business stuff well. So there's all of my ambitions, goals and whatever, they're always outside of my business. A lot of times when people want to change their lot in life, they obviously go towards business and starting a business, but they then focus the whole thing on a money outcome. I've never done that. When you make money a priority, then every decision becomes a financial one, which is, there's no emotion to that. We think there is, but there's no emotion to that. But how much time I spend with my wife or how much time I spend with my girls and how much time I can actually enjoy the people around me, that determines how well my business needs to work before I get that. So I'm not expecting that in the first 5 minutes or the first 1 year. I'm expecting that at some point in time if I work my rear end off.
So that's your carrot you dangle in front of you, your quality of life, which is certainly for me, that's what I call our true currency, is that quality of life you're having, because there are many that will work their butts off and be busy as and so frantic and so stressed, and then by the time they've made it home, they're arguing with those loved ones or even worse, ignoring those loved ones, which is no attention whatsoever. And the very thing that they're seeking to achieve, which is a better quality of life, they're just made disposable in the meantime. So they've sacrificed much of value to gain what I consider of the least value of all.
Yeah, look, I do a lot of business mentoring, and the reason people come to me a lot of the time for that is because of my very black and white outlook and opinions, which is good. So I get away with being Justin for a while. But I had a new client, and I had to give him a kick up the rear end the other day, purely based upon the fact because they kept on saying in our first session is I'm doing this for my kids and I'm doing this for my family. And I had to remind them that they're never at home. So you might be doing it for them, but they need to be involved in the process, which in turn, and this is what a lot of people don't like, that will slow it down. But in reality, it actually doesn't. We think if we actually take some time away from building our empire, it's going to slow it down. It may at the start, but you're going to be more deliberate in your actions then. So as I said right at the start, I want my kids to love their dad and I've got to be that shining light and example because I've got 5 daughters now. So I've got to be that guy that is the benchmark. So I can't do that if I'm only here once every week or only sort of fleeting in and out all the time.
5 daughters. I've just seen the headliner of the second generation of attitude.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why I've got no hair.
So I got to laugh at that. Another listener's asked, how much does one have to invest to make it on things? I think if you've started to listen, we're talking about much more than just money to make it on things, because we only ever do something for the feeling or that payoff we think we're going to get at the end of the day.
Yeah, and, I was asked a while back, I did an interview with a media thing out this way, and they said, what was the biggest feeling of success that I've ever faced? And they put it to when either my first book got published or when I sold Attitude, And I had to correct them. I said, no, the best feeling I've ever had, and hand on heart, this is the truth, is the day that I sold my first T-shirt. Nothing has ever beaten that, because someone believed in my product enough to give me that $25. And so that's where I think we've got to retrain or reconfuse our brains a little bit to go back to, hang on, maybe happiness isn't as big as what we think we need to get to at the start. Maybe it is just the small stuff, and we embrace that and we actually enjoy those small moments, because I've had 25 years of small moments put together, which is awesome. I've had also some fairly big disappointments along the way as well. But, ebbs and troughs and peaks and valleys, all that sort of stuff. You need your times that are hard to make sure that the times that are good actually mean something to you.
Well, exactly. If anyone's ever seen the entrepreneurial graph, it is not a straight line from A to B. It's up, down, sideways, backwards. I think it's a bit like one of those balloons that you let out the helium way too fast and it just zips all over the place.
Yeah.
So
look, it's fun and games, but I embrace that. I love the chaos of I'll never call myself an entrepreneur, but of entrepreneurialism and building a bit. I love that chaos when it's all going sweet and everything's just chugging along really well. I actually get bored.
Yeah, well, it doesn't serve those of us that are generally in that initiator process. It's the same as my emergency services background. I'm great in an emergency, but you get me in the day-to-day run-of-the-mill, all of a sudden I'm defunct. I don't have a purpose or a function anymore, because it's not. That's my boredom, my reinventing that you don't become, that leftover cheese.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm referring to the book Who Moved My Cheese. So, for yourself, what do you find is, your aid and assist to help reinvent yourself or re-inspire yourself or restart?
Look, I think it's just about keeping focus on what's actually real and meaningful, I guess. I learned pretty quickly that, you can have a lot of people say how unreal you are all the time. You can read stuff in the newspapers, you can see magazines and all that sort of stuff, and they have a great opinion of you. But, it doesn't really float my boat a great deal anymore. I was going to say there's an equal level of those that have a great opinion as well as those that will have a terrible opinion. And that might be a more important point to address for listeners, because, again, starting out on any initiative or any next big thing, or, when we go to share our light, wanting to be a bit better, there's always many others ready to blow it out straight away or rain on someone's parade. Oh, absolutely. But I listen to those people as much now as I listen to the people who, sing my praises. It's just an opinion, and it's nice, and it might be not nice, either or, but it's still an opinion. And look, one of my favourite sayings, it's none of my business what people think of me. So, and a lot of times when we are, especially negative opinions, when people have a negative opinion of us, it's not a lot of the time based on any fact. So I can't dictate that. It's no point. I think the older I get, the more I don't really care about all of that stuff, to be honest.
Exactly. Those of it. My son, he laughs at me and he says, Mum, how is it you're able to go out all week without having even brushed your hair? And like, well, I pull it up and I clip it up, but I'm comfortable in my own skin, so I can easily be done up glamorously that people go, oh my God, why don't you do yourself like that all the time? Or how I choose to be, because I am me and I'm comfortable and I can own either space equally comfortably. Yeah,
well, the only person I can be me is me, and I'm happy being me all the time, and I don't have to try to be me. So, and if people like that, that's great. And there'll be people listening to this that may not like me. That's great. That's fantastic for them. Great if you keep that opinion to yourself. Didn't call it attitude for no reason, but it's just I am who I am, and I can't really do much to change that at this stage. So
one listener's asked, exactly. One listener's asked, why does that change as we grow older? I've got my thoughts on that. How do you think you've changed as you've grown older, and why?
I think for me, relevance and importance is one thing that is a major aspect of my life now. What I used to think was important, a lot of it used to be trying to impress and please other people, and only to find out that no matter what I did, it didn't end up anyway. Like, and there's a lot of people out there that are just complainers, whingers and moaners, and so no matter what you do, you can give them $1 million and the complaint is too heavy to carry home. So there's a lot of stuff that you just can't do for people, and I'm sort of past that point. Like, I'm on this planet to infect and affect in a positive way whoever I come across. Now, if that means that some people don't like that or it's not their style, that's fantastic for them. But I'm just not fussed anymore, because I now know what's important to me. It took me a long time to figure it out, but I know what's important to me, and it's not so much how much money's sitting in a bank account. I actually don't even know. It's not that. It's how much of an impact I can have on the ones closest to me, and am I rubbing off in a positive way to them? And if I am, that's fantastic. If I'm not there, I've got to do some changing to make sure I can.
Exactly. And I would answer for myself personally, I don't believe it's something that changes as we grow older. I think it's something that changes with our experiences that we have, because I had experiences at a very young age. Those that are aware, I come from a law enforcement background, a combined background of over 16 years. And I was, in the era when small police women were unheard of. So I was, 5'2" and a female in a very male-dominated mentality and career, and as well as facing it from the public. So I copped so much attitude, like you would not believe, from every direction. I turned and I was, 20 years of age in combating that. So that was my experiences that helped develop me, that I'm aware of what I can do and how I can do it and what I can do. And the fact that you're unaware of that means absolutely nothing to me. So another listener's asked, like our likes change over the years, so how do we keep, for me, we'll see what Justin has to say. So have you discovered that your likes or your preferences have changed over the years? And is there something that you can easily keep up, or you have a strategy for keeping up?
No, I think I'm I don't know. You probably have to ask other people that about me, but I actually think mine has stayed the same. I'm pretty positive that they're sort of on par.
Yes.
I've remained if you had all my friends around and asked them the question, I can guarantee you that I would say that I really haven't changed a great deal over the years since I've known them since I was 14. So I think
just bought a nicer couch.
Yeah, and drive a nicer car. I mean, I've always been into the car thing anyway. But
exactly.
No, I don't think so. I have always maintained within myself, one of my goals was never to be one of those people that success had changed them and business and all that. I just didn't want that. It's as I said before, it's the tool. It's just a thing that I do to get where I want to get to and the stuff that I want. So, and that's not only stuff. That's also experiences. It's also time. Time is my big thing. So I own a lot of businesses now, but I still pick my daughters up from school every day. So for me, that's my measure of success.
Exactly, and your values. So you had a lot of values instilled from a very early age, as I know I certainly did. What would you put as your 3 most important values that you think for yourself and other people that is valuable to adopt?
It's funny because I just got a new tattoo. I'm not sure if you saw that one on Facebook. I got a new tattoo. No. And it was all my tattoos are deliberate, but this one was a very, very deliberate one, because the one thing for me, when people see a picture of me, or I go to a conference and they physically see me, they have an instant opinion of, I don't know why, but there's an instant opinion that they have of me. And then I'll either do my talking or we'll do a one-on-one session, and every time they go, you know what, you're actually a really nice guy. And I'm thinking I always have been a really nice guy. Right, so I had this new tattoo done, and I designed it with my tattoo guy, and it's awesome, I have to say. But it's like underneath my skin's been peeled away, and underneath are all my values that have been then tattooed in under my skin. And for me, Integrity is one of those things. It seems to be fleeting these days. Your yes should be yes and your no should be no. Keep it at that. Don't try and rip people off. Yes, you're going to get screwed over every now and again. Don't play that game backwards. Consistency, commitment, all this sort of stuff is underlying in what I do and how I do what I do. There's too many people out in the marketplace now utilising ways to rip people off as a business tool. I don't get that, and I'd rather take longer to get ahead by doing the right thing than trying to screw people over. So ethics, integrity, all that sort of stuff is a part of my underlying values as to how I'm going to get ahead. And the one thing after 25 years of being in business and being screwed over left, right and centre, I can still lie in bed at night not having one worry in the world about how I've treated someone else.
Exactly. And I think, that's something when you have your own personal name as your brand, which you and I both do, integrity really is core for it, especially for longevity. But more importantly than longevity is the fact that we do have children, we do have families, we do have friends. It is a value onto itself to know that we stand up for the things that we say we stand up for.
Yeah, because you're going to get caught out at some point in time if you don't. So there's a lot of, especially here in Australia, there's a lot of some of the, in speaking world, some of the well-known speakers that are really going down the wrong path and have been caught out, and that's because they're living two different sort of lives and one public persona and one private one. It's hard enough me keeping up to be me as it is, let alone trying to come up with a new way of doing it. So, and that's why I think for me, you getting back to what we were talking about before, the older I get, the more I actually am more comfortable in my own skin because it just is easy for me just to continue with that. And if I look at it, it's still an extension of how I was back when I was 25.
Yeah, authenticity is certainly key. And one listener's asked, can people change values as they go? Of course, because there will be those people that we've just mentioned that didn't have authenticity or integrity as a core value. They can adopt it any day, and we'd love them to.
Yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't it?
Oh, I can think of a few at the moment that instantly spring to mind that I must admit it's still, because having been a police officer and in that investigative role where you deal with lots of crooks and criminals and conmen of all shapes and sizes and walks of life, that I still expect people to be upfront, honest. And it amazes me. I am always astounded when they are not.
But and the other sad thing too, and it's not that people's fault, but a lot of people buy into that. I was going to say a word there, I won't use it. Horse dung. That a lot of these people are spruiking at the moment. And if success was easy, everyone would be successful. So there's a level of it being difficult. There's a level of hard work. There's a level of all these things that need to be applied. Can you buy something and create $1 million in the next 7 days? No, you can't. And if you could, they wouldn't be selling it for $5,000. They'd sell it for $10 million. So there's all these things, and that's my biggest bugbear that I am, especially in the mentoring and coaching space. I'm constantly digging people out of stupid decisions, and I sit there and go, how did you even think that would actually work? So I just think what we've got to do as individuals is just look at how do we want to go through life, and do we want to be chasing the ultimate dream, and it's not going to be sold in a pack. It never will be. And the other thing I've got to say for anyone listening, if you're going to go to any seminar or whatever, before you go there, just Google about the people who are going to be speaking from stage. You'll probably be quite shocked. Yes.
And again, they're billion-dollar businesses for a reason. Like if we look at the wellness industry, how to lose weight, the faster is apparently more appealing and better. But anyone that knows anything about the human body knows that fast ain't going to last.
No, and that's it. It's just got to go back to a level of common sense. And for me, common sense is really like deodorant. The people that really need to use it rarely do. So we've got to get back to that whole common sense approach now. And if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And that's where hard work, sweat and tears is the way that you're going to get yourself to the next level, especially when it comes to running a business, starting a business.
Yes, well, it's one thing I've made sure I educated my 9-year-old son on is that, they're all different forms of the old days. We called them the snake oil salesman. And it was good for all ills. And yes, as one listener's commented, not everyone has common sense. And it was a thought in my own mind that we really should retitle this Uncommon Sense.
Yeah.
Because that's what we have today is uncommon sense.
It's unfortunate, isn't it? But that's why, because people are chasing the ultimate dream, and I think the ultimate dream is unrealistic, and actually it's a mirage. And I think people need to get back to stuff that would really make them happy. There was a study, in one of my books I put this in, but there was a study done in America where they did a survey of over a 10-year period of all the different people who had won those huge lotteries over there.
Yes.
And it came back to something like 70 or 80% around there of those people 2 years after winning had less money than they had before they actually won the lotto. And it's one of those things, because if there's no foundation to your dreams and your aspirations, and if it's just surface, it's not going to last. It's building a house on sand. It's just not going to last.
Oh, exactly. So for yourself, what would you say has been your most extraordinary experience to date? There's a curly one for you.
Yeah, I think for me, being a dad, so my eldest daughter now is 25, nearly 26. My youngest is now just turned 16 on the weekend. And then my new wife, she's got 3 daughters. So I've got 8, 10 and 14. So for me, it's being the dad thing and going through that experience and imparting my, it's funny, I'm going to say this word, wisdom, onto my kids to create future leaders and future awesome women. That, I think, for me, like the business stuff, it's just a thing that I do. I've written 8 books. I couldn't read all right when I finished school properly. I've written 8 books. Yeah, that's great. I've done that. Speak all over the world. Yeah, that's awesome. Done that. But the dad thing, that's cool. Like, I could give up and be a full-time dad in a heartbeat.
Yes. Yeah, I must say I had the good fortune, because I was, for those listeners that aren't aware, I became pregnant late in life at the age of 41. So I was blessed with a little one after I had achieved already and lived so much of my life to start with. So I had a lot of energy dedicated towards my young son. And, I also had a rude awakening call. I lost my mother and my father, and had been in a position where I wasn't able to help and save them. And third time it occurred with my young child at the age of 4 in the US. And I thought, I'm not going to have third strike, you're out, and lose him as well. And that really hit home, because at the time my finances I'd lost, a lot of other family had been lost, a lot of other things had happened. And for me, that was my last... I don't know what way to explain it, the thing that I had that made sense to me. So, and the gift I was given was that I didn't lose him. And so at no point now, personally, professionally, in any way, is he ever put in the back seat. He has a front row seat to everything. He is part of decisions that affect him. And people will say, oh, that's someone quite young. It's like, no, we assume everyone is so young. And I think I meet more adults that are more immature than my child for decision-making processes. And I think you'll know a few of them as well.
Sure do.
So it's that uncommon sense, because at least at a young age now, he's skilled enough to be able to start to ask his own questions. And if you ask your own questions and start seeking answers in all things, on all topics, you at least become the senior decision maker in all the things that affect your life. And I think that's a key message that both of us share.
Yeah, you got to also, be good at problem solving. And I think the unfortunate thing a lot of parents do, and I was guilty of this with our first daughter, is we try and solve their problems for them as a protective measure, that doesn't assist them at all.
No.
So they've got to learn on how to do that themselves. So, it's just, the thing I like about, I guess, the fathering or the parenting thing, that there's no manual, and everything's
bit like our lives.
Yeah, but I think in business you can find some good structures and some good things to go and copy, do, or whatever, and it will probably work. Parenting's totally different, and that's where I love that challenge of different stuff, especially having 5 daughters. There's different challenges every 5 seconds. So
exactly, and there's no one-size-fits-all approach, which despite, all the well-meaning, parenting books that do exist on the planet, there might be some generalities or commonalities. However, again, we're all individuals. We're all unique.
Exactly right.
So what have you got coming up? I know you're coming up onto the Gold Coast in the following week.
Yeah, look, I do about 100 speaking gigs a year. I love speaking. It's one of those things that I know there's this funny thing going on. I'm not sure if you see this as well, but everyone wants to be a speaker now. And it's just like, really? There wasn't a thing back when I started. I fell into it. I was just asked to go and speak, and it's been going ever since. But I think there's a lot of people on stage who've got nothing to say. But so I love that. I mean, business and helping people grow their business and corporates and helping that's my passion. So I've got that. I've got a new software company that's just gone global, a referral business app. So there's a lot of stuff I'm doing. But, if you ask me what am I going to be doing this time next year, I couldn't give you an answer. I don't plan that far ahead.
No, exactly. So now that we've taken your children as your most extraordinary experience, I'm gonna move you out of that and say something that actually happened to you that created the biggest wake-up or the biggest impact or reorientated you or a slap in the face, other than the lady in the front row at the church.
That's easy. When I was 17, I was at a wedding, and I met a guy at this wedding, and he said, "Do you want to come with me to the reception?" I said, "Yeah, no drama." He goes, "I'll go on my motorbike. We just need to go to get your helmet. So jump on the back and we'll go get your helmet." So he decided to stupidly do 130 odd kilometres an hour, and a lady T-boned us, and I died for a while. Was in a coma, had to learn how to walk and talk and all that sort of stuff again. And yeah, that was a bit of a wake-up call at 17, where being in a position of having to learn how to do things again, but then looking at the quality of life stuff, I guess. So I've never, not taking things for granted, never have taken things for granted. That's why even with the business success, that's cool. I've had to work hard for it, but it still doesn't shape who I am. So yeah, that was probably a big slap in the face. Going through a divorce was another one. Wasn't a pleasant experience. So, wouldn't want to do that again. And so I've learned a lot about, making sure that I make changes within myself, and also how to avoid potential drama in the future. So, but that's why I actually, might be weird, but I don't mind the drama. I don't mind finding things that is wrong.
Exactly. And again, I know that, originally, quite some time ago, you would have espoused the thought that, somehow our partnerships or those things, they're meant to be worked on and we don't give up on. However, at the time, I can recall thinking, no, there are, things that you do let go of because they're no longer serving you. And we do that in, stuff we outgrow, our nappies we outgrew. Thank goodness for that. It's part of life process, whereas somehow we hold marriage as sacred and think, oh, that's not something we're meant to outgrow.
Yeah, especially my upbringing as well, with my dad being minister and all that sort of stuff. I guess it was one of those things that we were always taught that it's forever. It's not something that it's a pleasant experience, and anyone listening who's gone through it would understand. It's not a fun time to go through that whole hoo-ha. And for me, I did a talk a little while back, and it was not normally do I get asked to speak on personal issues, but it was to a group of women. They wanted to know this same sort of question, but I actually titled it the year that I lost my mojo. I'd put everything into this relationship, I guess, and marriage and whatever, and then when it's gone, you sort of net worth, self-worth, all that comes into the equation again. And it was a hard time. It was not something that I actually anticipated happening, but it's just not something that I'd like to go through again. But if need be, and if crap happens again, then in any part of my life, then so be it. I probably have to just handle it again. But no, I'm not saying that. I just got married, so that's going quite well. But it's one of those things.
We don't plan on it when we. Okay, and I'm just going to answer a listener's question. What is this nappies thing you spoke of? I keep forgetting my Aussie acronyms. The nappies are diapers. Those things you wrap around the little ones' bottoms that get full of all that caca. And then they'll write, what is that caca you speak of?
Yeah.
I'm educating a lot around the world at a very rapid rate, all the Aussie lingo, because we've got to learn something every day. So you might as well learn another Aussie terminology.
It's funny you say that. I was speaking in Canada, and I said before I spoke, I said, look, if there's anything that you don't understand what I'm saying, just put your hand up. And not long into it, a whole heap of hands went up at the one time. What did I just say? And they said, what's reckon? What are you talking about? I said, you think. Like, I didn't even know that they didn't even know what that word was. But,
yes.
Yeah. So, sorry, anyone listening outside of Australia, I'm very Australian, so... Yeah,
exactly. And as another listener's commented, we know what that is. I think that was to my referral of Kaka. I'm simply being cheeky. If you've listened to me long enough, you know I'll always be tongue-in-cheek. And again, I love it when I go over there and I say, let's have a sticky beak at this event. And they're like, sticky buns? You want a sticky bun? A bun? No, sticky beak means take a look. Let's have a quick look.
Funny.
A friend that was as another author, and they sent me some comments of saying, is this Australian lingo? And it was around jumbucks and, Billy T or something. And I said, it'd be Aussie lingo about 80 years ago.
Yeah. Moved on.
Maybe not today. So, yes, if you want your book to be dated back about 80 years, sure thing, go ahead and use it. But then again, I saw on the news last night the two kangaroos, the big reds, fighting in the street. And so it's being played on CNN. So now there's going to be a lot thinking we have the koalas and the kangaroos on every street corner. It's one way to drive tourism. We work with what works.
Yeah, works.
Exactly. So now I always loved the brand Attitude. So is there another brand that's waiting in the wings, or you'll see if you fall upon it like you fell upon this one?
Look, I did do another brand a while back, which was a sunglass brand called Intimidate. So there's the Attitude and Intimidate.
Yes.
I did that. I just got, I'm not sure about, say, maybe in America or the States, but here in Australia, retail's very difficult. The retailer is a very difficult creature to try and get your head around. And I think this comes back to the age thing. I'm getting to a point of age where I'm starting to choose my battles. And so I found it very difficult. Online, we were doing extremely well with, but I didn't want to have an online business. I like traditional. So for me, I've gone sort of bit left of that. So as I said, I've got the software company, which is funny. I can just turn a computer on, but I have a software company now that's global. I've got the customer culture, which is my sales and service training business. That's a fairly large thing at the moment. So I've gone more into that because customer experience is one of my passions, and we don't really get a great deal, especially over here.
Not so much Australia. America's very focused and orientated, and I love. But again, I think their livelihood relies on that ability to develop good customer service.
Yeah, so I've gone back into that space now. It's something that I thoroughly enjoy doing, and that's more so with large corporations and doing this old school customer service training, because there's a new trend. It's a dumb one where customer service training is done by staff online, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of, because you can't have an experience online to learn in customer service. I will reiterate that one and set that aside. So I've gone back now to that face-to-face stuff, and that's where a lot of the larger organisations are really embracing that now, because old school is new again.
Yes, everything comes back around again. Us hippies get a second heyday. So now I'm going to take you a little bit left of field, because you mentioned how you ended up in a coma and had died. And I don't know whether you're aware of one of the books that it's my latest one that's out with the publisher in the US at the moment, called Cracking the Human Code. And it's all things unusual, unexplained and unorthodox, and especially from that unseen parameter, which is my personal passion, not what I've commonly been known for. And we're currently putting together a TV series with this in mind as well. So I'm curious, did you have an unusual experience?
No.
You didn't?
No, I didn't. No. Oh, the only thing that I'll say is when I came out of being out of it,
Yes.
I said to my mum, "Oh, isn't it nice that so-and-so came and visited?" And she said, "How do you know that?" And I said, "Oh, because they were talking to me." And so I could remember that, and I could hear what they were saying, but I wasn't. I was out to it. So yeah, that's the only thing. But no bright lights, no nothing. Yeah.
I'm just curious, because I've had a fair few of my friends that, I've had my own death experience out in Sacred Sites Territory here in Australia, and Australia, I'll pronounce it a bit better.
Australia.
Exactly. Street, mate. Blimey, you better speak better English. And that actually was a really good redirection for myself at that time. But it took a lot of the fear of death out of life entirely. And I was more or less living my life confronting death in many ways prior to this event. And afterwards, it's something now that, those of us that have been blessed to have an experience, we actually really look forward to the day that we do die.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that, to be honest. I'm a big fan of breathing, as you saw when I heard when I started. But yeah,
Exactly.
Look, I don't know. It's just one of those things that I went through, and it sort of made me realise that I'm not invincible, I guess, back in those days, because I thought I was. But yeah, I'm probably a little bit safer now than probably ever have been in my entire life, which is bizarre.
Well, that's certainly quite a process to relearn, things that we do take for granted. And so if you were to give listeners, one core strategy that would set them on their path to their own financial goal, kicking their own financial goal, what would that be?
I'm going to do this extremely Australian. Have a crack. Just have an absolute go at it. The fear of failure is an unfortunate thing that sits within a lot of people, and nearly all of us, right? We're too scared to try in case we fail. For me, failure just shows you where you now need to fix. So you need to fail often, so you know what you need to go and fix and how you can fill in some of those gaps. So having a go, do it small, don't do it big. Don't go and borrow thousands of dollars to go and start something that's not been tested and you don't know how it's going to go. Start small, but only do it if it's a passion of yours. Don't do it just because someone else is doing it. I find it funny. I get asked to speak at a lot of network marketing conferences now, and I really applaud that model because it can work. But there are a lot of people involved in it that hate talking to people. And you're sitting there going, why are you doing this? Because that's part of what you have to do. So make sure it's a passion and follow your gut, go with the flow, all that sort of stuff. But just have a go. Just have a crack. Because worst case scenario, it doesn't work. Woohoo! Who cares? Now you know what not to do again.
Yeah, exactly. And that's most of us that are successful. We're successful because we failed more than most other people.
Yeah. That's why I don't know what I'm going to be doing this time next year. No idea.
Well, you're going to be a dad of 5 girls.
Yeah.
If you do all things right. Let's not curse you. You'll find where I live. You'll be knocking on my door, Rosie. I think we need to have a chat. And it's not on W4CY this time.
Yeah. It's all going well.
Oh, good to hear. Well, lovely to reconnect with you, Justin. It's been about a decade, and I look forward to we're both going to be live together. All things going well. We both will be live in amongst some others at the Speakers Summit at the start of the year for Blast in 2018. So for my listeners, thank you for joining w4cy.com. And for those looking for more inspiration and motivation, go to www.kickbutt.com.au because we're Australian. And for Justin, they can head to
justinherald.com.
Justin Herald, and that's Justin Herald, HERALD.com. And we'll look forward to catching up with you soon. And as one listener's ended the program, thank you for the inspiration.
No worries. Thanks heaps, Rosie.
Thank you, guys. Bye. See you next week, everyone.